All right, my friends, this is my first ever live broadcast, not in my office at home. So I am stoked to be here with my partner Blake Hauger. How do you say your last name?
Hauger.
Hauger, Hauger, and we are in his office in Alpharetta, Georgia, right off Mansell Road on Route 9 that's up there by the wherever the car dealerships are, if you know what I'm talking about, on in Alpharetta. Actually, it's Roswell, I think, where we are.
Yep.
And so, what, as you can tell, this is not the highest of speed technical stuff because we're still using our computer mic, but we're using this Yeti mic here too, or we're using the webcam, but we're still using this Yeti mic. So I'm hoping this all looks good here because we've never done something like this before. But what we're going to do is we want to talk about reverse mortgages because it's such a big deal, and I hear a lot of people asking me on my YouTube channel about reverse mortgages, and I hear a lot of people ask me otherwise, like, hey, what does a reverse mortgage do? And my concern, to be perfectly honest with you, is I hear like a guy like Dave Ramsey who talks about reverse mortgages, and where Dave Ramsey says reverse mortgages are a scam. And his solution to not a reverse mortgage is that you go get a home equity line. And I find that to be just horrific advice because if you have no income to the extent that you need a reverse mortgage, how the hell are you going to get a home equity line of credit? If you go get $100,000 home equity line of credit, that's your line, $100,000. They're going to underwrite you to make sure, at least in the old days, and Blake, you can speak on this in just a second. They're going to underwrite you that you can afford 1.5% of a payment each and every month, even if you don't borrow against a line. And so, if you don't have the cash flow to put food on the table, you're not going to have the cash flow for $100,000 line of credit at $1,500 a month. Now, they might be a little bit more lenient nowadays, but either way, they're going to say, we think you could borrow $100,000 on your line of credit. We need you to be able to afford a $1,500 a month payment. If you're not going to be able to do that. It's not going to happen. So Dave Ramsey, and I like him on paying off debt, but this is just wrong. It's horrible advice. And there is a solution called reverse mortgage. Now, we're going to talk about reverse mortgage and learn about it here today. So, Blake, just who are you? What have you been doing? And tell us a little bit about reverse mortgages, if you will.
Sure. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you inviting me to Josh. I appreciate you inviting me to come on. There's a lot of misconception around the product. Personally, about 2.5 years ago, somebody talked with me about getting into the space of reverse mortgages because of my ability to kind of articulate difficult programs in a way that people understand.
Yeah.
And so I took my first look at it in late 2015 and jumped in with both feet in 2016 through 2017. I've been in the mortgage business for 18 years.
Okay.
And the last two, so all of 2016 and all of 2017, I dedicated my efforts in learning this product and learning how to structure it in a way that accomplishes goals far outside the norm of the way that most people think of using it, which is just to take cash out of your house or to pay off a mortgage. There's some additional features to the program that, I can say that 100% of the financial planners or realtors or homeowners that I've talked to over the last 2.5 years have not known one of the most valuable components to the program. That being that the entire loan itself is a line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
Except the difference with this line of credit is that it actually grows every year. And so that component to the program is really what makes it have such a robust value to help accomplish a lot of different needs that seniors have in retirement.
Yeah. So I want to play a case study, if you will, on reverse mortgages. But going back to I want to kind of go back a little bit, Blake. You've been in mortgages for 18 years.
Correct.
In 2005 and 6, there's ninja loans, no income, no jobs or assets loans. Anyone who just could fog a mirror could get a loan. And what happened was because of these underwriting leniency, everyone who could fog a mirror got a loan, took money out of their accounts, and then turned around and essentially when the markets crashed, it went kaput. A lot of mortgage people are no longer doing mortgages because they went bankrupt at that point. You're still in the business. And we'll talk specifically about reverse mortgages, but how has the mortgage market changed since then? Because I'm telling you, I remember like it was yesterday, I got a thing from USAA they would borrow me or loan me 105% loan to value on the equity of my home when I lived in Dayton, Virginia, even though I was only making like $40,000 a year. And I was like, that was in 2006. How has things changed, and how has the advent of reverse mortgages actually worked with the change in terms of the structure of mortgages in the whole industry as a whole? Does that make sense what I'm asking you?
Yeah, I mean that's a very big question that has multiple lanes to answer, because we're talking about how the mortgage market had changed from no doc loans,
Right.
to where is that market now in the conventional
Right.
conforming 30-year fixed. We call them forward mortgages. How has that changed from then to now? That in itself is a discussion. But then you incorporate the reverse mortgage piece in there. And here's the thing: the reverse mortgage program has undergone so many changes over, call it, the last 8 years, that it's been under a constant revision. And I feel that where we're at right now, there were some major changes that took place on October 2nd of last year, that being 2017. And the market, our volume nationally is down about 30%. There was actually an article posted in Reverse Mortgage Daily about 2 months ago that the reverse mortgage volume is the lowest they've seen since 2005. And it's specifically because of the changes that took place in October. Now, I believe that we'll see those volumes start to pick back up as some hopefully future adjustments are made, because it really was a knee-jerk reaction to try to help the sustainability of the program from a servicing side, and to help reduce the risk on FHA because of the value of this growing line of credit. We were able to model it frequently to where the line of credit, if somebody took it out at 62 or 65 and they intended on staying in the house for, say, 20 years, it was a very easy conservative model to show that that equity line could grow greater than the value of your home. And that was with taking a reasonable increase of appreciation and value. And, FHA and HUD and those guys saw, they're like, okay, that we're in 20 years from now, the FHA Mutual Mortgage Insurance Fund could be in jeopardy of some very large claims. And so that was part of why they made the changes. They were also having some servicing issues on the back end, which needed to change. But long story short, that's kind of the reverse side. I think a lot of the changes that they've made over the last 8 to 10 years have been to make the program better, and it not just better for the government, not just better for FHA. I think that some of the changes that they've implemented, it's been good in making sure that the loan is being given to people that can actually afford it. Now, I'm kind of segueing around from where were mortgages in 2005, right? And I'm kind of rolling right into the reverse piece. But the way that the reverse mortgages used to be, and I want to also clarify that the actual name of the program is called a home equity conversion mortgage. It's not even called a reverse mortgage. So that's a HECM. So the acronyms are HECM. And so a lot of people in our space, we will call it a HECM or home equity conversion mortgage. And if you're a realtor or a financial advisor or somebody that's watching this that wants to talk to a friend, a family member, or somebody about it, do not say reverse mortgage to anybody. Not because it is a bad name, but because of the way people associate the program with some of the features of the original program that rolled out that did put a lot of older people out on the streets. And we can kind of talk about that if you like. But, one of the major changes that took place, I believe it was in 2015, was they put in place they put a, of course, right now I'm drawing a blank, but they made it, they put a income requirement to where we had to actually verify that somebody is making enough money to pay for their taxes and their insurance and their HOA dues. Because if they're not in a position to do that, then just like any home, if you don't pay your property taxes, it's going to do what?
You're going to get a lien on it, and
you're going to get foreclosed.
Exactly.
Okay. If you don't pay your HOA dues, they can kind of do the same thing, right? And so when they put the financial assessment in place, that was really, it shrunk the pool of who can qualify, because prior to financial assessment being in place, if you had a pulse and you were over 62 and you had equity in your home, you were getting one of these. And they were seeing that there were still a lot of defaults on the programs because they were giving the loan to people that with one lick of a medical bill or whatever, they couldn't pay their property taxes.
Yeah.
Well, you don't pay your taxes. That's what's
foreclosed.
called a borrower responsibility.
Right.
And if they're not adhering to their responsibilities, they can foreclose on the property. And so back to the changes that have been made. Sure. Did it eliminate some people that could qualify? Yep.
Yeah.
But did it make the program more sustainable for those that can? Because we're making sure that we're giving them a loan that they can pay those additional features with. One of the other changes that they also put in place at that time was the mandatory obligation, as far as being able to pay so they have, well, I should say the initial disbursement limit. Okay. And so if FHA is going to give you 100,000 line of credit, you cannot have access to that whole $100,000 up front.
Okay.
Okay. And so unless that $100,000 is being used to pay a mandatory obligation, a mortgage, a tax lien. Okay. Tax lien, you can actually pay that with one of these. Unlike if you were to go do a conventional mortgage and you had a tax lien, that would have to be paid prior to closing.
Mm-hmm.
FHA sees that as a mandatory obligation, and you can actually use the funds from the HECM to pay that off.
Okay.
So it doesn't prevent you from qualifying. But my point is that if FHA is going to give you $100,000 line of credit,
okay,
right, and you only owe, say, $30,000 on your house, well, they're only going to allow you to have 60% of that $100,000 during the first 12 months.
Okay.
So you can have $60,000 of the $100,000 line of credit.
Cash money.
Okay. Now we're going to be paying off your $30,000 balance to Wells Fargo, which means you still have 30 left.
Is it mandatory you have to pay off that 30,000?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
So they're still going to have that $30,000 left, but on the 13th month, that other 40 becomes available.
Release. Okay.
Okay. And the reason why they did that again is because they wanted to make this not a cash cow program for people to just strip all the money out, go blow it, and then find themselves in a hardship.
No, exactly
so their mindset was, if we prevent people from accessing the full amount during the first 12 months, then hopefully they won't jump right back into the rest of it on the 13th month. And that can become that cushion for the people that find themselves in that possible financial hardship to go, oh my gosh, we don't have the money for our taxes and insurance. But wait, there's still that extra reserve on our line of credit. So they've put these steps in place. So your initial question, how things changed, that's a huge change. A lot of people don't see that as a good change, but for people like myself that have been in the business a long time and want to see that we're doing business for people that these aren't going to blow up in their face, then those changes were great.
Well, that was why I asked the question to begin with, because of the changes in the mortgage industry with just the first mortgage, a second mortgage, it affected everything else. Because the last thing we want is we don't want grandma not being able to pay her property taxes and then get foreclosed on. And that's so you see a huge amounts of changes on your ability to access your equity in your home. And some of those changes are going to put some people, like you're saying, they can't qualify, but other changes are actually going to make the system more sustainable for the people who can qualify. So we got, all right. So, hey, what's going on, Mark? We got some folks commenting there. All right, cool. So if you have questions, by all means, look, I'm not the expert in reverse mortgages. Why we're Heckams, which is why we're talking to Blake. So let's go over to case study. I want to talk about this. So we have, because I deal with this all the time. 72-year-old widow, let's just say, divorcee, has Social Security income, maybe $1,000 pension. So she got 2,000 Social Security. We'll just use that for an example. 1,000 pensions. So she has 36,000 a year. $250,000 home, fully paid off. All the equity in the world is all hers. All right, in her, but she needs more cash because a $3,000 a year, a month, isn't covering her outflow. I mean, do you think about it? Your Medicare Part B is 134. Your Medicare Part D is 34. Your Medicare SLEPs are another $200. That's $500 a month right there, and that's just before even co-pays or co-insurance or anything like that. I mean, we don't need to get too deep in Medicare supplements here, but you're talking $400 or $500 right there. And like you're saying, she has the roof. She has to fix the roof, $10,000, or someone is saying HVAC, another $10,000-$15,000. Where does the money come from? And so how does a HECM in that case work? So again, $250 is their fair market value, no debt on it.
Sure. Well, there's, obviously you can put one of these programs on the house. There's no problem there. As far as her getting a loan, I see one of the questions is, can you still get 50% of your equity. No, that actually changed. Well, let me clarify.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're the right age.
Okay.
So the entire program is age-based. So the older you are, the more equity they're going to give.
Oh.
Now, a rule of thumb, kind of prior to October 2nd of last year, one of the major changes that they put in place was they reduced what we call the principal limit. So that's the name that we call the amount that's actually being lent, the principal limit. So we don't say what's your loan amount. We say what's your principal limit.
Okay. The amount that's being lent
is the principal limit.
Okay.
So on October 2nd last year, they reduced those factors by about 10% across the board.
Okay.
So where somebody at 62 prior to October 2nd could get about 50 to 51% of their equity, that same client today is getting about 38 to 41, just depending on where rates are. So they reduced it quite a bit. And so that's one of the reasons why we've seen a crunch in volume, is because the people that were qualifying before, that pool just got smaller for the people that had the equity position to do it. So that was a good question.
But that's 62. What if you're 72? Is that?
Yeah, well, it's still, yes, it's a sliding scale, but it doesn't jump 10% for every 10 years in age.
Okay.
I think the max principal limit today is maybe 65%.
I think I read 63 or something.
Yeah, 63 or 65.
Okay.
So there's a scale. So for every eighth of a rate, and that's why I'm not being specific and quoting what that is, because for every eighth of a rate and for every age, for every year of someone's age, the number's a little different.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
And
for every eighth of a rate.
For every eighth of a point in rate. So now that's the way it's modeled on a rate sheet. Now, when you get behind in secondary, who knows? But we see it as every eighth of a point.
Okay.
But to your point, so yes, that person could take that mortgage out, put it on their house. They have access to, let's just say, $120,000. They'll just keep it simple, right?
Okay.
Well, they could access up to 60% of that during the first year. And if they needed to tap into that to borrow $20,000, $30,000 to do some home improvements, they could. And what's nice about that is that when they take that money out, they're not required to make any mortgage payments to that.
Okay.
One of the other ways
when they're required to take they're not required to take mortgage payments on the $20,000 they took out to pay for the housing repair, or the whole thing. I mean,
no. So one of the kind of key features, or in my opinion, one of the most well-known features or benefits to the program, is that when you borrow from the line of credit, you're not obligated to make a monthly mortgage payment. You can if you want. So if you take out $20,000 and you've got a rate of 5%, well, it's going to accrue interest at 5% on that $20,000, and that's just going to increase or just kind of stack on top of the balance of the mortgage. So year after year, it's going to grow. Right,
like a student loan, essentially.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Deferred student loan, but they could make a mortgage payment. And so if there's $2,500 a year in interest, they can pay that just like they're doing on their, if they had a mortgage, just like we probably all are doing on our mortgage, right? Same thing. Or they can make no payments, or they can pay lump sum. And if they pay it down $20,000, now that's available to them again.
Gotcha.
So that person would have the flexibility to do that and not increase their monthly payment liability.
Their outflow.
Yep.
So they can pay. Just thanks to the folks for retirement options. Keep up the good. Yeah, you got a CB. All right, so just I'm kind of hard headed. So they got $250, and I know we're just basic stuff. $250 is their equity in their home. Again, I'm saying they don't have a mortgage. They can have a line of credit, roughly 120 on that, but they can only take 60% of that in the first year, and then that after the first year, they'll free up the rest of the money. And now they have $20,000 to pay off the HVAC. They can let that puppy just sit there 5% a year for the rest of their life. You know what I'm saying? They never have to pay another premium or another payment on that.
Right.
Okay. And so then the negative would be, of course, that, that's just compounding. And then when she dies and has to liquidate the house, that would, obviously it's a lien on the property right there. It's a deed of trust. Okay. Well, okay. I mean, that sounds bad, but I mean, hell,
but not necessarily, because, now grandma's not sitting in the heat, and she's got a brand new air conditioner, and she's got a new roof over her head, and she's got the things that are needed to be able to stay and age in place in the home.
The age in place. Because that's exactly what I'm talking. So,
I mean, go ahead. People think about a lien on their house.
Right.
One of the funny illustrations that I do in my briefcases in my office is, people think home equity is like some golden nugget.
Right.
Why? Like, whoever told us that sticking our money for 30 years into a one-way ATM and just letting it stack up in the walls is a great investment. I mean,
The bankers.
where do we learn that a one-way ATM is a great investment tool?
Right.
So what this product does is it allows people who have put a lot of their hard-earned money into the walls of their home for a very long period of time to be able to now have a vehicle on it that allows them to access that money should they need it again.
Yep.
The interest that's accruing on it, it is what it is, right? But I mean, you look at having an equity line in place. So to kind of talk to your world, let's say we have, I mean, I saw that the market's up the highest it's ever been today, right? Well, let's say we experience another huge market drop.
2008.
So how do we deal with sequence of returns risks? So you have someone that's got a $150,000 or $200,000 line of credit. They're drawing from their portfolio, in their retirement. And now you can say, hold on, let me model or show you how we can use the equity line in your house to supplement during the next year or two to reduce the sequence of returns on your portfolio. Or better yet, hey, you know what? Your health is in the bucket. You're 65. You haven't planned for long-term care yet. You can't qualify for it either, unfortunately, A, financially, B, health-wise. So how are you going to help somebody have the funds necessary for the long-term care needs that we're all going to need to have if we live long enough? So the growing line of credit aspect of this can provide a wealth of benefits depending on understanding what the client's need is, talking with you about are they living in the comfort zone? What is their probability of success on a Monte Carlo simulation? Let's plug this in. Let's see what it does. Because in most scenarios, when you incorporate a reverse mortgage in a Monte Carlo simulation, it bumps the probability of success of over 90%.
It's funny you said CB. He was talking about sequence of returns. I promised you I'd do that video on sequence of return risk. But going back to 2008, if you're pulling 4% a year out of your portfolio and you have 100,000 portfolio, you're pulling 4,000 a year. If the markets fall 50%, which is exactly what happened in 2007 October to March of 2009, now your portfolio is worth $50,000. You're pulling 4,000 off $50,000. That's an 8% distribution. And no financial planner is ever going to say you can take 8% a year out and successfully live your life unless you die early. So what I talk about all the time is this is one of the things I hate when people are so against annuities too, because you can run lots of different scenarios and show you if we can avoid taking distributions from your portfolio when the portfolio is tanked, we can find some other source, be it an annuity, be it a reverse mortgage, be it a CD, which is I talked about the two bucket retirement plan. It's just going to make you solidified more because you don't have to tap into that 4,000 a year when the market has gone down to $50,000. And just as an FYI, I just talked to a guy yesterday in Florida. The facts are, my friends, we haven't had a decline of any significance since 2009. It hasn't happened. We've had a couple small caps that got 33% down in 2016. International markets did too. But most people in the United States have most of their money in large cap stocks. There has not been any bear market in large cap stocks since 2009. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's certainly going to. And when it does, if you're pulling money off your portfolio to put food on the table, that's the wrong answer. So if we come back to the reverse mortgage, so we got let's just say, Blake, I got 120,000 as a line of credit. I haven't tapped into it yet. Mm-hmm. Now you're saying it can appreciate. Is that based on appraisals or based on assessments, or how does it appreciate?
Right. So we can't use the word appreciate. Okay, because it's not an investment product that's appreciating.
Okay.
So if we keep in mind that FHA is only lending you a certain percentage of your home up front. Okay. That's kind of the base for understanding that. So what they're doing is they're saying, okay, there is an interest rate associated with this product. Let's say it's 5.25%. Right. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, at the end of year one, what we can guarantee is that your life expectancy just got a year less.
Right.
So what we want to allow homeowners to do is to have access now to more of that equity that we did not allow them to have access to when they took the loan out.
Right.
So for every year, it's really monthly, but the best is to see it on a yearly projection because you can really see the growth of it. But every year, the line of credit itself is going to increase. So they're taking what they didn't allow. They're going to take what they didn't allow you to access over here on day one, because now you got this $250 line, $150,000 line of credit. You've got your equity still in your house.
Right.
You just got a year older. So they're going to go, okay, let's just take from this, not really take.
Right.
We're just going to allow them to have a little bit more access to that equity line. And that's going to happen as long as they stay in their home as their primary residence. Now, here's the key. Why is this product superior to a line of credit?
You don't have to get underwritten.
What?
Well, you do kind of have to get underwritten, but
no, there's some very specific components. Number one, a line of credit, a traditional home equity line of credit is a non-secured lien against your house. Meaning, if the market crashes, just like it did in 2009, if you had a line of credit that you were banking on to be there as a safety net,
right.
What happened to your line of credit? They cut it. They said, you have no more lending ability. It's frozen. Okay. This is a secured line of credit that can never be frozen, can never be taken away. You will always have access to it. On a traditional home equity line of credit, if you put a $125,000 line of credit on your house, how much will that line of credit be in 10 years? 125. It's interesting. I plugged in over here into a scenario where this person is starting off in 10 years, his line of credit will grow to 205. So it started because I took closing cost in. So they started with a line of credit of 114.
Okay.
And as you can see, this line of credit is growing. 10 years later, the line of credit has grown to 195. And if we bump this to 85 years old, that original $114,000 line of credit that you had access to has grown to over $330,000 tax-free.
And that's just because you're getting closer to death.
It's just because now if the rates go up,
right?
Because I'm illustrating this at a rate of 4.875. If rates go up, say by 2%, that same $330,000 line of credit over here is now worth close to $500,000. You want rates to go up in this program because the higher the rate, the more they're going to increase your line of credit by.
Why? I don't get the logic in there. The higher the interest rate in the market, like a 30-year, the more.
No, not the 30. I mean, this is tied to the 10-year, the 1-year LIBOR, and then the overnight swap rate is how it's all based from the beginning.
But the higher the rates are, the more they're going to increase your line of credit. What I don't get it. Why?
Okay.
Why would
so for you guys watching, this is a tough part of our conversation, probably for you to understand, because you're not able to see this illustration. This would be a great piece for us to figure out how to incorporate one day.
Absolutely.
But what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of talk through it with you. So if we look over here, now I bumped the numbers to a house worth 300.
Okay.
Client 65.
Okay.
The principal limit is 125,000.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's automatic. Nothing you can do about that. Okay.
No. Gotcha. So if you only needed, say, I just want to pay off my house for 80, it doesn't work. You're getting a line of credit for 125.
Okay.
So we've got the closing cost in here. So they're going to start with a final line of credit available to them of $114,000. Okay. Now remember, they don't have access to all of that during the first year. Based on this model, it's paid in full.
Okay.
The house has no balance.
No balance on it. Okay.
So, but you're only getting one loan for 125. Okay. It's not two loans. So if they owed $30,000 over here and we're paying this $30,000 off, it's not a loan to pay off the 30 and then a line of credit left of 84,000. It's one loan for 125.
Okay.
And this 125 is it has an interest rate attached to it of about 4.875.
Okay.
Okay. Well, every year, if you owe 30,000 on it, that's accumulating interest. As you can see, it's accumulating the interest now at 4.875.
Okay.
But the remaining availability to your line of credit is still growing at the same 4.875, because what's really happening here is it's not an equity line growing and a mortgage balance accumulating interest. It's one line of credit for $125,000 that every year you live, they're going to give you a little bit more access to the equity in your home. So in our illustration over here, we've showed that we paid off a first mortgage, a small first mortgage, and they still have some availability on their line of credit. I'm sure you guys can all understand that. Well, over here, what's growing is what they've borrowed and what they still have access to of the original $125,000 line of credit.
And they're both growing at 4.875.
Well, this one's accumulating interest at 4.875 because that's what they've borrowed.
Right.
And this one is just continuing to grow as the overall $125,000 is growing. Now, I'll show you this here. Let's take the $30,000 balance out. So when you talk with somebody who has a house paid off, this is where the DOL and the FHA and all these people are talking about, saying that it's no longer the best financial decision to tell a homeowner having your house paid off is the best thing for you,
Right.
because it's not. What if this client at 65 didn't take this out? You didn't recommend this program. At 85 years old, they experienced some financial hardships and they were totally broken, ran out of money. But they could come back to you and say, Josh, you could have recommended a reverse mortgage to me, and I could have had access to another $330,000 to be spending to be able to live.
Right.
Okay. So Jamie Hopkins out of the American College wrote an article about how to avoid errors and omissions because of advisors not putting this into a
But
plan.
why can't they still at 85 still get that 333? So they didn't
Well,
do
at 85 years old, and Wade Fowl has done
Right, no,
an
that's
article
good.
on the benefit of putting one of these in place early
yeah, right.
versus taking one out at 85. So I'll show you.
Yes, has a book on it too. And I'll put the link in the show notes too, folks, because it's pretty good.
Yep. So at 85, with this person allowing this balance to accumulate over, called a 25-year period, a 20-year period, they
Right.
got 333. Now let's put this to an 88-year-old.
So we have a 65-year-old who starts with a line of credit, home equity, the HECM, and it grew the line to 333 when he became 85.
Tax-free. They can use it for absolutely anything and not have any monthly payment obligations.
Right.
Okay. And it doesn't go against the Medicare modified adjusted gross income. So you could have one of these in place, and by them pulling from this rather than some of their other qualified funds, you reduce the Medicare expenses. I've also talked with a CPA who talks with his.
The reason I'm laughing because I talk about this all the time. The modified adjusted gross income for Medicare Part B and Part D, on top of your taxable Social Security as well. The modified adjusted gross income is not your friend.
But this is a way to not have to pay taxes even on Social Security, because your Social Security is taxed based on how much you're withdrawing from your qualified funds. And if you're using this to supplement, then you're actually paying no taxes on your Social Security.
It's music to my ears.
There's a lot of ways to skin the cat when you really start understanding how this values. But let's talk about our scenario.
All right.
She's got a $300,000 house. We're going to kick her at 85 years old.
Okay.
Because that was our illustration.
Okay.
She's going to start with a principal limit of 174.
Whereas
versus
she double that.
If she put it in place at 65 and did nothing with it, just let it grow, it was worth $333,000
because of as she gets
because
older,
of the growth.
Exactly, of the line of credit.
That's right.
Not the appreciation, but the growth.
The growth of the line of credit.
All right, so let me ask you a question too. From cost, how much does it cost for someone to do at 65 on the initial 114 versus someone doing it at 300 when they're hit 88? You see what I'm saying? Is there
so the cost difference, the cost is going to be the same because there are no costs associated with the $300,000 line of credit that's grown over a 20-year period. Okay. So FHA charges an upfront mortgage insurance of 2% of whatever the appraised value is.
The appraised value. Okay.
Right. And so even if someone's borrowing nothing, they're still paying 2%. So in this scenario, a $300,000 house, they're going to pay $6,000.
Okay.
And then you've got just your other title fees and all that.
So you still have to get the title fees. You still have to get
So you'll see, I've just got estimated $5,000 for third-party cost plus the $6,000. We've got a starting loan balance of $11,000, and that was subtracted directly from the line of credit, which is why we ended up here. Now, these loans didn't used to be that expensive. Okay. So, well, I should say they were that expensive for a period of time, and then they reduced the upfront mortgage insurance premiums, and then now they've kicked them back up again. And that's where we've seen a big crunch in our business. So prior to October 2nd, a lot of my business and a lot of our business in the industry came from financial advisors who were going out to their clients who had a $600, $800 million house saying, hey, let's put this $350,000 line of credit on your house. We know you don't need it, but let's put it on your house because the reality is that this line of credit could grow over $1 million easily. And what if your house depreciates to 900 and then you've got a $1.2 million line of credit? Okay. Well, we were modeling that a lot.
Right.
Okay. I'll talk to that.
Okay.
But when the cost now of this 2% upfront mortgage insurance went in place, that
Okay.
$800,000 house or that $700,000 house, they're like, no,
Right.
because they're like $22,000 in closing costs.
Right.
For that person who didn't need it, but was doing it before, because I could put that deal in place for about $4,000,
Right.
it was a no-brainer.
Right.
Like, wait a second, we're going to turn this into 800 grand for $4,000. Yeah. Now it's more like, no, I don't need to spend the $20,000 to do that, even though there's benefits for some people. So, that was one of the changes to it. So the cost, though, most of the planners that I work with still look at it and say, okay, it's going to cost you $11,000 to get this.
On a 300, how much is the home here?
This is a $300,000 house.
$300,000, $11,000 in closing cost, all of these on a 125. Okay, gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
And somebody will go, wow, that seems really expensive. $11,000 to refinance my house. But then we look at the value that it adds and we say, well, hold on.
Right.
If you do nothing, which is the way we're modeling this is how we're looking to incorporate this into your plan.
Right.
For $11,000, I can't turn that into 300 grand for anything.
Right.
There's not another product I can do that with, And so once we start understanding that this is like paying a single premium for some type of life insurance policy or something, it provides an element of insurance to the whole plan.
You also got to look at it, just from the tax perspective, because a couple things going on here. Without the need to take distributions from accounts, the tax perspective will easily make up that $11,000, I would think.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd have to model it out. On top of that, just the knowledge that you have this account you can tap into that is accumulating or is growing as you age. It just seems to me, Blake, I think that for me, the most of the folks I enjoy working with have about a $250,000 to $300,000 home. They got $5,000 a month of income from Social Security and military pension or something like that. They're not spending that much, but a couple of things are happening. They're worried about getting hurt or sick in the long run, and they don't know, they probably can't qualify for long-term care. They don't want to sell their house. They want to age in place, you know what I mean? And then you look at like a continuing care retirement committee, which I'm a big fan of, but those things aren't cheap. And so the option is, what do I do if I have this house? Because I've dealt with this my whole career. You got not just a widow, but a husband and wife, and they're just regular middle-class people. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying, all right, so let's just say it costs you $11,000 to have $125,000 line of credit that you can only tap into a little bit in the first year. It'll release the second part of it in the second year if you need it. But most people aren't even going to need it. At least the people that, frankly, I've worked with, most people just don't need it, but they like the security of knowing it's there. That's pretty interesting to me. So we know for a fact that's 2% of the appraised value. If the appraised value is $300,000, you're paying $6,000
straight to FHA. That goes straight into the FHA mortgage.
But it's on the loan here too.
That's right.
Right. So
it gets deducted from
the proceeds
of the loan.
But
you could bring it to the table if you want.
But you don't have to.
No.
All right. Well, that I don't have any qualm with that at all. You got to. That's the cost of doing business here for the benefit of a pretty significant access to your own home, if that makes sense.
That's right.
Cash poor is not a place we want to be when you're cash poor in retirement, because you have all and I'd say this all the time. Equity in your home doesn't put food on your table. It doesn't. The only thing that puts food on your table is cash. And a lot of people, if you sell the house, well, hell, how much is that going to cost? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you got to find someplace else. I just think it's I don't even want to say a stopgap. I think we have an issue that needs to be addressed here in a home equity conversion mortgage. HECM. Would you all call something else to?
HECM, home equity conversion mortgage. Yeah.
Not reverse mortgage, but that's two terms.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to I think you're going to go over another example of something. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's just a lot of ways to kind of put it together based on different people's needs. You can model it where you can tell someone, look, this same person at 65, let's say they've got a $60,000 mortgage still left on their house.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to put a mortgage on there, right?
And they're paying $800 a month to that now.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
Well, there's a couple ways you could look at that. You could say, okay, you're going to now be saving $800 a month, so that's income.
Is that considered your original? You said something when you first started this. You have to use the proceeds to pay off something.
Well, you have to use the proceeds to pay off any lien on the house.
Okay.
Period. So this mortgage takes place of any lien on the house.
Okay.
And it can only be in first lien position.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're using this $125,000 line of credit. We're going to pay off their existing mortgage to Wells Fargo that they owed $60,000 on. Their monthly payments now are $800 a month. So, Josh, I would say to you, okay, Josh, so there's $800 a month right there. You can show them not taking 800 from these other funds, or here's 800. I'm going to give you 4 to spend. I'm going to take the other 4 and I'm going to do something with it. You would do something with it, right? Or what we could do is we could show them the value of not or paying it back to the mortgage. So I can model payments optional. So let's say they pay the $800 a month back into this, and they're 62 and it's somewhere in the 70s. They want to retire and be done making payments. So let's say they do this for another 12 years. And I can come over here and I can say, okay, well, that's great. So you started with a balance originally, rolling the closing cost in and whatnot of $70,000. And as you made this $800 payment, it's 74 years old. So not even 10 years, that mortgage balance will be gone. You will have established a line of credit of $212,000 on your house. And the beauty is that 85, when you guys start getting these older ages, you're just creating an additional bucket of tax-free liquidity of over $330,000. Now, that same guy says, no, I don't want to do that. I want to keep putting my money into the one-way ATM. For what? So you see, there's a lot of value in someone that says, no, I don't want to be done making payments. I just want to have a product on my house that allows me to have access to that money when and if I need it later. And this is the only product that gives them that flexibility. And they can access it in multiple ways. They can take they can access it they can engage a 10-year payment, not 10-year, a 10-year payment. So this will actually model that over here. So let's say, for instance, at 75 years old, they could take out $1,378 tax-free for the rest of their life, regardless of how long they live, regardless if the market plummeted.
Is that a month?
A month. Tax-free a month.
So wait. So at 75, they could take out, let's say, roughly $1,400 a month, guaranteed
forever for
the rest of their life, not taxable.
Correct.
And the fees already been paid for, so it's not even, there's no fee or anything like that.
This is your borrow. It's actually a loan. I mean, you're taking this from your house, so that's why it's not taxable, because it's a loan.
Return of principal.
Right.
Okay.
So they would guarantee, we'll give you $1,400 a month for life. If you live to 105 and you end up owing $500 on your house and it's only worth $200, doesn't matter. That money's going to continue to stream in. Or you can take it out in different terms. But you have what's nice about this is the the product available in the market that a homeowner has the ability to use, that they have full control of, because they can say, hey, you know what? Let me get $1,400 a month.
Right.
Well, husband dies.
Right.
They get a life insurance check for $500,000. I don't need that anymore. I want to freeze it.
And they can
call and say, I don't need that anymore. It freezes. And whatever is still left on the line of credit continues to grow. Now, whatever they've borrowed, they now have a balance.
Right.
But there's no payment.
Right.
So the leftover is still there. So this gives a homeowner the ability to say, hey, to the bank, I need $5,000, put a new roof on my house. No problem. Wire it in. No payments. And then after that, a couple years later, my husband's passed away and I need to supplement my income. I need an extra $1,000 a month. No problem. $1,000 a month. You can engage the 10-year payment, a term payment, a lump sum, or a combination of all.
Man, that's crazy.
And none of it's taxable.
On a married filing jointly, are the terms different if it's a husband and wife, or
no? The terms are the same. The loan is structured off of the youngest of the two spouses.
Gotcha.
So if you've got a husband that's 75 and a wife that's 65, the entire loan, the principal limit factor is going to be based on her age. So that's how that works.
All right, so that's fantastic. So as you can tell, folks, this is new to me, so I'm learning this as we speak. But I'm watching. For me, I'm very visual, which is why I love YouTube. But you're seeing right there, $1,378 to be exact, a month on, what was the initial one again? It was I think it was $125.
Yeah, well, this was with them paying This was with them making payments. So what we did is we showed them making mortgage payments, so not stopping.
Yeah.
So where a lot of people think, okay, I'll do this and stop making payments. Right?
Yeah.
Or the other primary feature that people think of is, I'll use this and just start taking money out. But that's where I would say, well, hold on. What are you trying to accomplish?
Right.
Let's talk long term. Okay, are you cool? Are you comfortable making $800 a month? Yeah, I can. I'm fine with that. I just didn't think I needed to. Well, let me show you the value if you did, right? And so that's where we start modeling that this really adds another
It's
big
freaking
bucket of liquidity for them
huge.
later.
And so then just lastly, Blake, 83 years old, I'm going to a assisted living. I am going to downsize. I'm going to do something. Just sell the house, just like you would if you had a lien on your house.
That's correct.
It's just no big deal.
That's right.
All right. So one thing I have to make sure people understand, because Ramsey was talking. Look, I like Dave Ramsey. I can't stress enough, but he was saying, no, it wasn't Dave Ramsey. It's CBS News talking about the negatives on reverse mortgages. Ticked me off because he's the guy or the lady was saying this lady was put out because of reverse mortgage. And I said, whoa, what's going on here? The reason she was put out is because she wasn't paying her property tax. Had nothing to do with reverse mortgage. Had to do with the fact she wasn't paying her property tax. I said, no one's going to make a TV show on people being put out on a first mortgage, a traditional mortgage, if they don't pay their property tax. Everyone recognizes you have to pay your property tax. And so I didn't like that. It's like, I thought that was pretty disingenuous from the news folks at the media. So shocking, huh? To say the reverse mortgage is what made this lady not pay property tax, when it's absolutely, she would not have paid property tax on a home equity line of credit either. In fact, it would have been worse because a home equity line of credit, you have to pay.
That's right.
I can't stand the falseness of the media when they talk about things like annuities, reverse mortgages. I always say a firearm is not good or bad. It's an inanimate object. A firearm cannot do anything. Is the people who use firearms incorrectly that are bad. Same thing with this, same thing with annuities. An annuity doesn't know if it's good or bad. It just is. It can be misused. A home equity conversion mortgage can be misused, but so can a home equity line of credit, as we can attest to. I'm telling you right now, in 2009 at USAA, I was working there. I can't tell you how many people called in panicked because USA pulled their line of credit against their home because the assessed value went down by 40% and they had no source of cash. I'm telling you right now, I'm not banging on USA. They had to do it. They had to protect their asset. But like you were saying, this cannot happen with a home equity conversion mortgage. You cannot get the line pulled from out of you. And it's contractual. I mean, there's literally, it's in this.
Totally secured. Yes.
Oh, man.
And it's always going to grow.
Yeah, and it grow more as the interest rates.
If rates go up, the product's better for those who get in early, because if rates go to 7%, this product almost kind of goes away. It does go away. It doesn't work for new origination loans because the principal limit that they would give at 7% rate is nothing. Okay. So as rates continue to go up, the program is going to become less favorable for people. That need to access the funds. The people that are getting in now, the people that have gotten in, those are the people that are cheering for higher rates. So there is a big push. I mean, it's like people need to get on the bandwagon with this.
How long does it take to actually go from app to closing?
So app to closing is generally about 30 days. What I've seen the most is that from the time you mentioned to somebody, hey, you should talk to Blake, and I talk to them, there's so much education that goes into, and I model this with a homeowner every time. So they're seeing this, they have this eye-opening experience. They can see that right there. I show their scenario right here. And then it's, okay, well, I want to talk to my kids, or I want to talk to my financial planner. And I always encourage that and say, well, let me be a part of it too, because I want them to see this. And so one of the longest parts is getting everybody on board. But once I go through the process of making sure, not turning over every rock and making sure that everybody's 100% on board, that everything's here, then it's quick from that point on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so if you're, again, you have to be 62.
62 is the minimum age.
Primary occupancy.
Correct.
And it was a third thing too. 62, your owner occupied home, and what was the other thing?
I mean, that's really it.
You have to have some equity, I guess.
Yeah, you have to have equity. I mean, this is an equity-based loan, so I generally tell people have anywhere between 50 and 60% equity in your house.
Hear that? 50 to 60% equity as a minimum, kind of to really make this work.
Yeah, but even that would be eliminating people. I was teaching to a group of financial advisors down in Florida in May, and one of the people in there had to bring $75,000 just to get into the program. They owed more than what the principal limit was going to be by 75 grand. Their mortgage payment was $1,600 a month. So I said to them, so is your $75,000 earning you $1,600
Right,
a month.
exactly.
And the financial plan goes, absolutely not.
Right. No, I
He said,
guarantee.
he did his little numbers. He said,
Right.
that's a 24% return.
Right.
What'd we do? We ended up
Paying,
moving the money,
yeah,
putting them in, and now they've got that money.
and it's
So
growing.
so we don't want to eliminate people
Right.
based on equity. Now, if we aren't there equity wise and they don't have the funds to possibly get us there, sure, we'll work through that. But let's not eliminate anybody. Let's talk to everybody over 62 that owns a home, that might have some savings, that's possibly on the cuff of being able to qualify without having to bring any money to the table. And let's just dive in and help as many people as we can.
Who's ideally you want to be stay in place. You're not trying to move. That would be
Yep.
something. I mean, because
Yep.
if you move in 5 years, it's probably not.
Yeah, if you move anywhere between the first 5 years, you're not going to really probably get the recapture of
Right.
your cost. But even with that, I mean, it's scenario based. I mean, you could have
Okay.
someone that says, I can't move until then because that's when I can take my severance package and leave. But right now we're super tight and we need an air conditioner and blah, blah, blah. And we need it. And we could really use
Okay.
the relief. That's
Okay.
where I say, I don't want to eliminate
Yeah, okay.
anybody ever,
Gotcha.
because and here's another thing I can tell you. I've gotten a lot of referrals from financial advisors that the clients told me things the advisors never knew.
Mm.
And so when I started getting in and started digging into their personals
Mm-hmm.
and really getting into like what's going on, we end up totally structuring a deal that the financial advisor goes, I had no idea that they were like that, because they just,
Yeah, exactly.
you know what I mean?
It
So
happens.
it helps to not try to eliminate or underwrite people unless if they're 62 and they own a home, we should be looking at them.
Yeah. Folks, you all have I mean, it's always kind of problematic when you ask for questions, but y'all have any questions, any thoughts that jump out at you? I mean, I can, it's tough when you don't see the model here.
We're going to figure that out.
Yeah. One time we're going to do maybe a case study or something like that. But Blake, how do people get in touch while we're waiting to see if anyone has questions?
Sure.
And I'll put it in the show notes too, to hit Blake's contact info.
Yeah. So I'm at North Point Mortgage here in Roswell, Georgia. If you have any questions, you can call me at 678-887-8800. Again, 678-887-8800. You can also visit my website, which is blakehauger.com. That's HAUGER. So blakehauger.com is my website. My contact information is there.
Yeah, right.
And I'd love to connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. I'm all over both of those. So I'd love to help you or talk with anybody you might have that you think this could be a good fit for.
What if they're not in Georgia?
So personally, I'm licensed in Georgia and Florida, so I can do loans in both states. But company, we're licensed in all 50 states.
Okay.
So even if you had somebody in Alabama or Tennessee or something like that, and you wanted us to speak with somebody, we would have a mortgage professional that could be able to talk with them in that state as well.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's good stuff, Blake. I'll put some wrap up on the show notes in terms of Blake's contact information. I'll put the article that he referenced from Wade Pfau. And Wade, let's just put it this way, is a PhD in retirement planning. And if you think about a green eye shade guy when it comes to retirement planning, Wade is the guy. In fact, Wade, Dave Blanchett, Michael Kitsis, Michael Fink from Texas Tech. Those are kind of my big four when it comes to financial planning, brain trust. And if Wade Pfau, who has done the analysis of reverse mortgages, has written a book, and he suggested as part of the plan, having read Wade for many, many, many years, and he's just, the guy's got nothing but street cred when it comes to financial planning. If he suggests that people ought to be looking at this, you got to be looking at it, which is what brought me to Blake to begin with. So I've been meaning to get on this for a long time, and I read an article by Wade, and I'll put it on the show notes. And I said, and somehow I came across Blake in my LinkedIn feed. I can't remember. I said, man, you do home equity, I call it reverse mortgages. He goes, yeah. I said, man, I'd like to chat with you. And he said, well, come on down to the office. Let's do this live. So that's what we're going to do. And like I said, we'll get more detail as we kind of figure out. This is kind of an off-the-cuff arrangement here. We just kind of did it quickly. But hopefully it helps you, my friends. And as always, if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, put them down in the comments. Thumbs up always help my YouTube. Just the algorithm loves to see thumbs up and comments too. Go to Blake's website and just stay tuned for the next episode of the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks now. We hit the stop broadcast there.